Hi, I'm President of Collinwood for YouTube. Joel Saint, it's my buddy Gordon Dymowski, my buddy Alan Gallant, my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to discuss the 1978 movie Superman. But I do have a lot of questions here. So, okay, for many moons, many people have claimed or believed there might be a Superman curse. So, guys, Superman curse, legit or shit? Gordon.
Nonsense. It's bunk. For one thing, Gilligan, there's no such thing as curses. I've told you this.
Yes. Secondly, Joel, let's look at the record. Okay, George Reeves shot himself, but Kurt Gallant, the actor who played Superman before him, nothing. Right. Christopher Reeve, besides the accident, not really much. Dean Cain, I wish there was a curse because I think he should be dead. Nothing's happened to Henry Cavill.
Brandon Routh.
What?
Brandon Routh is fine. Gerard Christopher's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so no curse. We're not going there. I think that whole thing started because of the Reeves thing, and it's just not there. So,
well, here's something. Christopher Reeve died sadly because he bought a horse that was more than he could handle, named Invictus. And I shouldn't laugh about it. I'm not laughing about that, but I'm laughing at the bad joke. Christopher Reeve's accident was very sad. And Christopher Marlowe was also killed before his time. Connection?
Chris, that name.
It's the Chris curse. Mm-hmm. Jesus Christ had Chris in it, crucified before his time.
It's true.
Yep. Christopher Lee did a lot of vampire movies. There you go.
And he died before he reached 100.
Someone has to warn Christopher Lloyd.
Who was nearly 100 himself, I think. No, he's in his age. Way up in his age.
Is William Christopher still alive? We've got to get to him stat if he is.
No, it's too late.
No, I think he passed a year or two ago.
He did.
There we go. Joel, I don't know. Do you think there's a Superman curse?
No, I just figured I'd ask about it because I know that's
a fun topic.
Yeah, it's something that gets talked about amongst.
Yeah, it's great to start a movie conversation with. Yeah, is this movie cursed?
I don't know.
Not the movie.
I mean, it'd be one thing if we were talking about Twilight Zone, the movie, but we're not. We're talking about Superman.
I'm on Jules' side with this. I think that talking about a wacky curse is a. I wish every movie could start with a talk about a wacky curse, but they don't. It's Humbert. It's the living Humbert.
It's super Humbert.
Humbert Estrada would have made a good Superman.
I think it would be a great General Zod, actually. I think that would have been pretty.
Yeah, Thayer David would have been a better Superman.
He would have been. All right. You got me on that one. So, Michael Soroka is Otis.
When did you first watch this lovely film, Superman?
In the theaters in 1978.
Yeah, in the theaters, 10th birthday present.
Yeah, I saw it in the theaters when it came out, opening day.
I saw it on television because I wasn't born in the 70s.
Sorry. It plays well. It plays well on TV though. Also, I mean, it's a movie. It's a widescreen movie, but it has so much heart that it cannot be diminished on the small screen.
You're blurred. Yes, dear. Yes.
Now, what's going on? Oh, hello.
This is hello.
He's an axolotl. He's an axolotl. Make you look like an axolotl.
Right. I get no respect. No respect.
All my respect. He's all my respect.
Oh my God.
Look at you. Look at you.
Nice interlude.
Okay, guys, who's your favorite Superman? George Reeves, Christopher Reeves, Dean Cain. Who do you pick?
Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Concur.
I don't have a horse in the race here. I wasn't that big of a Superman fan.
Unfortunately, Christopher Reeve did.
Yes. And
Yeah, and I'm surprised in all this talk about Superman, you failed to mention, Joel, Tim Daly and George Newbern's vocal work on Superman the Animated Series and Justice League. Shame on you, Joel. Now, I would say both of those would be number 2.
I wish they had gotten Gilbert Gottfried for the voice.
up and away.
No, the late Gilbert Gottfried. Yeah.
The late great.
Or Carlos Alazraqui doing the Taco Bell dog as Superman.
Yeah.
We need that. We need like the old Quiznos, like I forget what they were called, sponge monkeys. You know, we love the subs because they should have been Superman.
The
Go
California
look that up,
Raisins
Joe.
is
Look up
Superman.
Quiznos. We love the subs. Go watch that.
I will much later. I will.
What about the
watch
Chicken Tonight jingle as Superman?
How about Charles Nelson Riley as Superman?
Oh, you've got to see the CNR video by Weird Al if you haven't seen it. Joel.
We'll watch it.
Oh my God,
Joel, we're trying to have a serious discussion.
I
You're
can
welcome to
tell.
join us at any point.
So there's a lot of people in this movie. Obviously, Christopher Reeves plays Superman. Gene Hackman is Lex Luthor. Margaret Kidder as Lois Lane. What did you guys think of Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor? Or Luthor, sorry. I'm thinking of the wrestler. Lex Luthor. Luthor.
As Lex Luthor, I thought he was. I think he brought his own insistent take on it as an actor. I think he wanted to make it interesting for himself, and I think he did. I mean, he basically played him as. I mean, there's obviously this comedic element involved with this particular one because, you know, of the sidekicks and all, and what's going on there. And Valerie Perrine and all of that's going on there. It's like I'm surrounded by idiots kind of vibe going on, which is kind of fun actually. It's sort of comic booky, you know, in a way. It's a departure probably from what most people of the 70s thought of as Superman and Lex Luthor, you know. Which is Luthor was a darker character by that time. I think there was a period in the 60s where the villains sometimes had a little bit of absurdity to them in the comic book.
At this point, Lex Luthor was flying around in this purple and green jumpsuit, creating super science stuff.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that Hackman would probably lean more in the, you know, he's more of the con man, shifty versus the straightforward Christopher Reeve Superman.
Absolutely. Which is a nice counterpoint too, because throughout the whole thing, Superman is a ray of positivity. I mean, he never gets past the seriousness of determination in this movie, and everything else is sort of, hi, how you doing? I'm really Clark Kent, but you don't know it. You know, it's kind of he's having amused moments throughout this, which is endearing actually for the character, and especially his relationship with Lois Lane.
It lets him get away with some dumb stuff too. That's like giving away all of his secrets or almost all of his secrets in an interview about the limits of his powers and all stuff that comes back to haunt him later.
Right.
But he never has a moment of reflection on his relationship with the media.
No,
literally as a member of the media. That's the interesting thing. You know, you would think that he would have learned something in journalism school,
right,
about that, especially in a post-Watergate era. But I think he's just so goofy on Lois.
It is too, and also the movie doesn't play post-Watergate at all. I mean,
Yeah.
it's there. Everybody's dressed in 70s clothes and there's 70s tech, and he goes up to the phone booth and it's an open phone booth. You know, there's a joke
that.
about that. But the actual feel of it is late 30s, early 40s. Gee whiz! I mean, there's a lot of that going on in this movie.
Well,
And
Jackie Cooper helps.
yes,
Yes.
absolutely, he does.
In a movie that's an embarrassment of riches, Jackie Cooper is one of the richiest of the riches. I mean, he's just wonderful in the film. And I don't think he gets enough credit for livening up that part. However, when we talk about Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, Jackie Cooper as Jackie Coogan, what
As Perry
what
White.
what we do leave out is Tom Mankiewicz's screenplay, because that really sells this. It's a good screenplay.
Mhm.
It's very funny. Hackman can only be credited with so much, because it's not like he, came in and said, I'm redesigning the costume and so on.
No.
The only thing I know about Hackman is that he refused to shave his head.
Right.
And so that's one of the reasons. And it lends itself then to a series of hilarious toupees
Right.
that get that like Murray Hamilton's jackets in Jaws get more and more tasteless and bizarre as things get worse and worse.
He gets the Shatner turbo wig.
Oh, it's some great wigs. Great wigs in the movie. So I love Gene Hackman in this film. And no, he doesn't resemble Lex Luthor in the comics, and maybe that's a problem with the comics. I really like this Lex Luthor. It is Peter Quince, where Peter Quince has taken over the center stage spotlight from Nick Bottom, and Nick Bottom is relegated to being what Nick Bottom probably would be, which is Otis.
Yes, that's true. Nick Bottom would, absolutely, Otis. There's a bit of George Steinbrenner in his portrayal of Lex Luthor, including his sartorial tastes. With the broad checked pants at one point and the big huge collar and all this sort of thing.
But Hackman has this confidence that sells them.
Oh, absolutely. He's in that reality. He doesn't comment on it. He comments on, the other characters and so on, but he doesn't comment on what he's doing.
And anyone who's ever been frustrated working with other people for whatever reason immediately can identify with, yes. Do you want to see a long arm, Otis? Do you want to see a very long arm?
Yes.
Otisberg. Oh, Miss Teschmacher, she's got Otisberg. It's just, God damn it! Everything in this movie is something I love.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very grounded movie for a movie about a guy who could fly. It's very grounded emotionally. It's very much. It has that 40s Gee Whiz style, but there's also an emotional reality to it. Why it never feels, even at the end when he does the whole spin the planet backwards to change time, I think we live in a time now where everyone is so knee deep in not only the lore, but like production issues and all that, where now they'd say, wait, Lex Luthor should be bald. No, he should be a scientist, not this real estate guy. But I think you accept it because it came at a time where nobody cared about that. I mean, I don't think anybody leaving this film was disappointed because Lex Luthor wasn't bald or Krypton didn't look like a city from a 1930s era space opera.
Right.
And who's to say that Lex Luthor is not a scientist in this?
That's right.
He's a super genius. He just happens to be involved in a real estate scam that has to do with a fake chunk or a real chunk of a deadly piece of another planet that he has obtained. That sounds like a super scientist thing to me.
Yeah.
Reprogramming nuclear missiles. That sounds like a super scientist thing to me. Yeah. So anyone who has that complaint needs to watch Superman the movie, because he could a wily real estate guy come up with that plan and involve those things? Sure. And a scientist, tired of being a scientist, could come up with a wacky real estate scam that involves strategic tectonic manipulation.
Of course, he probably also needs more money for more scientific
Mhm.
stuff that he's going
Enhancements to Valerie Perrine.
That's right. Right.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone in the '70s complained. Oh, wait, Jimmy Olsen should be a redhead, not some dark-haired guy. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Now we live in the, I'll just put it with as much kindness and compassion that I can. Now we have a lot of whiny ass man babies who are hung up on canon, no matter what the
Fan-
franchise.
Yeah.
Well, being a
fans-
geek wasn't in fashion then.
Yeah, it was.
We didn't have Yelp back then,
Yeah, we also didn't have people declaring that they are the masters of the genre, and the gatekeeping was underground.
Yep. You had to go to conventions to get it.
Yeah. We didn't have secondhand. We didn't have armchair showrunners or movie producers back then.
Yep.
Joel, why do you find this so funny?
I just found it hilarious. Anyway, I do think Luther is a scientist in this movie because he figures out that, hey, if Superman came from another planet, then his home planet pieces of his home planet must have fallen to Earth too. I mean, that's not I wouldn't think, that's not just real estate stuff. That's scientific.
It's science weirdness. I mean, it is a really bizarre theory.
Yeah.
Because Superman doesn't even know this
Himself.
quite, does he?
That's right. No, I don't think he does. No. He's confronted with green kryptonite. I mean, but
smells like home.
Luthor didn't count on having a horny romantic girlfriend who took to Superman either. So brought down by a more standardized sort of betrayal rather than some.
Gosh, Valerie Perrine's good in this.
She's
She
great.
is. I mean, she genuinely is, and she's very smart in certain parts,
Mhm.
and she's smarter than anybody else in certain parts, which I really appreciate.
Right.
And her mother lives in Hackensack. Wow. What a badass moment by Gene Hackman. Because Gene Hackman also has moments where he's genuinely chilling.
Yes.
His sick, diseased mind.
That's right.
Wow.
His ambition is somewhat homicidal. I mean, not somewhat. It is homicidal.
Oh, I mean, it's the second best villain line after "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die."
Right.
Is no, causing the deaths of innocent millions. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's something Superman can't come back from that.
No.
That's a Richard III level.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's a
what a fantastic. I don't want this to turn into just me going, what a fantastic movie, but it is. I mean, it just grinds everything to a halt.
Yeah, it is a great movie.
Yep.
Capital G.
I like how the thief is walking up the side of the building with the plunger,
and that's good too.
Superman's standing on the side.
That's sort of like a Batman 1966 TV series moment almost. There are a couple of those in this movie, but again, they play it the same way they do on the Batman 66 series. They play it all with sincerity. They play it with commitment. Whether it's the style seems corny at times, which it would if you didn't play it that committed.
Yeah, the difference is that in Batman 66. The filmmakers are commenting on all of this.
They did,
and Richard Donner isn't.
Right.
He's presenting it sincerely.
I think too, there's something magical about the way Christopher Reeves turns into Superman when the helicopter that looks carrying Lois Lane is going to fall. He's like the guy's like, wow. He's like, excuse me, and just goes up. It's great.
Yeah. With Reeves, it's all about facial expression and body language.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. You can find it on YouTube. I'm not sure if it's from the first or the second movie, but there's a scene. I think it's from Superman 2, where Lois Margot Kidder's Lois leaves, and I think Kent thinking about uh, telling Lois that he's Superman. So as Clark Kent, he takes off his glasses, and you can see his like face turns into Superman.
Yep.
And she comes back. He puts it back on. His posture slumps a bit, and that I think is the other secret. He doesn't play it with, like Adam West as Bruce Wayne played it all the way through
Sure.
between Bruce Wayne and Batman. There isn't. He doesn't give too much difference. That's not a complaint. That's just the way he approached
Just
it.
the way.
With Reeve, you can see where, okay, Kent is in disguise, so he has to hold back a bit. But as Superman, he can be out front.
Right.
And that's why I think that the movie works, is that he knows how to do that shift internally so that we see it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many good. I especially love how they did the origin story in this movie. It was done to be really, really great. I love. I'm gonna kick myself now because it said I got the actor's face in my mind, who played Superman's father in this. Marlon
You mean
Brando.
Marlon Brando?
Yeah.
Glenn, yeah. Well, I mean, Glenn Ford played his father on Earth,
Right.
and Marlon
Yeah,
Brando
Glenn.
plays Jor-El. Yeah, his father, his real father.
It's really, really great. Yeah, two great actors, Ford and Brando. Really, really good. And I love how they do the origin story. I love how Superman, your Clark, the young boy, is like lifts stuff up. It's really, really good.
It's good. The revelation of his powers to his Earth parents is pretty amazing. That's a really cool little scene. Also, we don't see Chris Reeve for 45 minutes of this movie.
Yeah.
That's the origin story. They go into this depth, but it's great. It's not like dry exposition. It's just it's what works. It all
Yeah,
works.
nothing wasted.
No.
And you don't miss the lack of Superman in that first 45 minutes.
No.
You're and I think that really is another thing that grounds the movie, is that you see this intense, thoughtful, ethical dignity of Jor-El fighting bureaucracy, which is a very 70s thing.
Of course.
And then you see this salt of the earth sense of Zen wisdom that Jonathan Kent has, and so as the movie continues, what are you doing? But you're watching the product of that.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a mathematical equation where every part matters, and you're fine with those early parts of that recipe.
Yeah,
because they matter. They count.
They're all part of who Superman / Clark Kent becomes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you send some of my paycheck to my mother?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's a upright, upstanding, ethical, familial thing to do under the circumstances. He's a good son.
Yeah.
Among other things, he's a good son to his original father too. He, when he decides to spin the world around backwards, part of the conflict is Jor-El, whispering in his ear, "You're not supposed to do that. That's forbidden," and all of this sort of thing. But then his Earth father is telling him, "You were put on this earth for something. It wasn't to play football, but there's something that you need to be doing.
You are here for a reason."
Yeah.
Wow. And that's a thing. I mean, because this is not a theological film, so there isn't really a sense of destiny to it. But I do think there is an idea that we all kind of are here for a reason, and it's our job to find it.
Right.
Yeah. But I really, I believe Glenn Ford when he says those words.
Yeah, absolutely.
And John Williams, who's speaking just as loudly at that moment.
This is some powerful emotional music that he throws at you during this film. So having just completed Star Wars a year or so before he did the music.
And he writes a better score. He just turns around and tops it in
Keeps
every
going.
regard.
Yep. Height of his powers, so to speak.
Gordon, what did you think?
I think the way they handled the origin was wonderful. The Krypton is just the right amount of length. I think that middle section with Glenn Ford really works because that's where I think casting is important. I'm sure that there were better known actors who could have been hired to play Jonathan Kent, but Glenn Ford has that right mix of he doesn't look too much like a movie star, but he looks enough like he has that kind of down to earth, very folksy quality. But this is a guy who played a kind of a sleazy guy in Gilda. But there's a believability about him.
Yeah,
that works.
He's got an everyman quality.
It's the same wisdom, and that everyman quality is the same thing that Babylon 5 got right when they cast Rance Howard as John Sheridan's father, and that and the DS9 got right when they cast Brock Peters as Cisco's dad. I mean, the only actor I would have preferred seeing to Brock Peters in that part would have been Ossie Davis.
Yeah.
Who I just love.
Yeah.
I think Ossie Davis is hung the moon and stars.
The only other actor of that era, of that age, that I was thinking of for Jonathan Kent probably would have been somebody like Rory Calhoun.
Oh yeah, he would have been good.
He would have been, he would have just had that gray around the edges sort of thing, kind of raw bone. Looks like a farmer,
Yeah, the other actor I could think of would be John Wayne, but John Wayne is too much John Wayne.
Right.
We just associate him with being John Wayne when he walks on the screen. I mean, that's the problem I had with Sean Connery in Last Crusade, is that I just kept thinking, I'm just watching Sean Connery, and I expect him to wink and punch someone.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a distraction. With Glenn Ford, right on the money.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was too sick at the time, because I know he
John Wayne.
Yeah. Well, the other actor I'm thinking of.
Who, Jewel? Who are you thinking of?
The other actor I was thinking of was Henry Fonda. He could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Henry Fonda would have been amazing.
But I think he was really sick at the time. I know he was.
No, he did. No, he did stuff. He did. He was doing the Swarm. Yeah.
It may have been with a lot of productions. It might have been okay, especially since this was a big production. It might have been okay. Because Brando, I think, got paid roughly $7 million for a small amount of actual screen time and script.
Yes.
So it's okay, we blew most of our budget on Brando. Who do we want? We want Henry Fonda. Who can we afford? You don't want to go too cheap and get say, I don't know, Robert Conrad or William Conrad. Let's go with Glenn Ford. We like him.
Yeah, Glenn Ford's a good choice.
Oh, William Conrad would have been an interesting choice too.
But
he's a good actor, great voice. He's not pushing that plow. I can tell you that.
No. Robert Conrad is having
I can see William Conrad
off my shoulder moments with his son.
Yeah,
let's go out and wrestle, kid.
I can see William Conrad as Jonathan Kent saying, I'm going to let the farmhands handle that. Sit with me, Clark. Let's have some milkshakes and talk.
That's right. Milkshakes and cigars.
What did you think of
the time I was a private detective?
Or the time I talked about a moose and squirrel in a really loud voice.
Yes.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. What did you guys think? We talked about New York a bit. What did you guys think of the farm location we got?
It's beautiful. It's right out of Andrew Wyeth.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's shot beautifully, and it's probably one of maybe the end of the way you could probably own. It's harder to shoot farmland like that now, simply because you've got with modern technology, trying to do that kind of vintage feel would be very difficult.
Yeah, it's a different landscape, literally. but it is very Midwest, and I always thought of Metropolis as being Chicago.
It is.
Yeah,
Metropolis is Chicago because Gotham City is New York.
New York, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, really good. Good film. Good the way they shot the farm. There's a lot of cool effects in here, obviously, which is awesome. The flying. So, what did you guys think of all our cool effects, or the cool effects they put in this?
I believed a man could fly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There was a lot of good, either blue or green screen, probably blue screen back then. But there was a lot of really good creative use of that, overlay.
That just something occurred to me with that. Think of how challenging this would have been to shoot with blue screen
Mhm.
because of his costume.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
I
they
think
probably
they used.
must
Yeah, I
have
think
done
they used.
green then. They must
Yeah, they
have.
used green.
Yeah.
They would have had to, because there is no green on that costume. So yeah, that would make more sense. Actually, I wasn't even thinking about that. He would have disappeared. Just an
Did
ass,
any of you
you know.
Did any of you see the TV series Superman and Lois?
Yeah, I did.
Yes.
I thought it was pretty good,
Mhm.
and I think it comes the closest to capturing the spirit of this movie. And that's the other Superman I really like is that actor, because he cares about people, and that's the essence of Superman.
Really?
And that's what so many things like the Brandon Routh movie kind of lost, and but especially the Snyder things, is that the Christopher Reeve Superman wouldn't have done that because Christopher Reeve Superman liked people.
Also, that was truer to the origins of Superman, the code against killing, and all of that
You
separated
bet.
early Batman. Early Batman had no such qualms, and then it was, by the time we got back to the Dark Knight, we got back to the fact that he would kill people, if he needed to or wanted to. So
I like how they did the alternate Superman from Bizarro World in that series.
On Superman and Lois.
Yeah,
yeah,
that was good. They ended up turning him into Lex Luthor did turn him into Doomsday in a weird way, which I didn't mind.
Mhm.
Really, really good. The actor who
Are you talking about Lois and Clark?
no, I'm
No.
talking.
No, Superman and Lois was on the CW.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's very
Yeah,
recent.
I've not seen that.
Alan, if you like this movie, you would like Superman and Lois. It's a good show.
The
Well,
guy
I
who was he was on Band of Brothers, but he was also he played the one guy in The Walking Dead. He plays Lex Luthor on that series.
Okay.
He played a military guy in The Walking Dead. I forget the guy's name, but yeah, it's really, really good. This movie is really, really great.
It's hard. I mean, Julie. It's honestly, it's kind of hard to rise above that because
Yeah, it is.
there are a few films where just a gobsmack, gosh, that's good, is the appropriate response.
Can I tell you something though? And here's
Yeah,
what I think.
sure.
Because I know sequels don't always live up. I feel Superman 2 did live up to this film.
Yeah, it's not my favorite movie,
but
it comes really close to capturing most of it. And that's because the bizarre way it was made, right? You know the story on Superman 2?
No, I just watched the movie. I don't.
Okay. Well, this explains some of the movie and its inconsistencies. There are two versions of that movie that are out now.
Yeah,
There's
I do
also
know that.
okay. So you know why there's two versions of the movie.
No, I
It's
don't.
it's interesting. Richard, the Salkinds who produced the film did something again that they had just gotten sued for, where they said, we're making one big roadshow movie. It's going to be a big 3.5 hour, 4 hour movie. It's real greatest show on earth. Cleopatra style, intermission type film. And so they paid the actors to make one big movie. Well, the paycheck for one big movie is still smaller than making two pretty big movies.
Yes.
And so in the middle of shooting, when they got enough of Superman, the movie, done, they said, well, I think we have enough. You know what? What the hell? We're going to split these into two, and we'll release Superman as its own thing. It's going to end in the middle, because what happened originally is that Superman, sends one of the missiles up into space, and that explodes, and it knocks the Phantom Zone villains out, and that would have been the second half of the movie. Well,
Right.
Donner was midway into shooting that when the Salkinds pulled this nonsense, and so Richard Donner walked. He said, I quit. That's it. I'm not going to put up with this. You did this with Three Musketeers. You're not doing it again, and not with my name on it.
Right.
And so they brought in Richard Lester, who's a good director. There's nothing wrong with Richard Lester. He has a very different sensibility than Richard Donner. And so that's why Superman 2 sometimes feels like two kind of different movies jammed together, because half of it Donner didn't shoot. And an editor later went back and found as much of the Donner footage as he could and mixed it with test footage and screen tests and stuff like that, and released in the early aughts, maybe around 2006, Superman the Donner Cut, which we never thought we would see. There were actually rogue websites just dedicated to that story.
Trying to piece that together. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's an interesting, chapter in that. And Superman 2 is a decent movie. The Donner Cut, if you like Superman 2, as you've seen it, Criswell predicts that you would like the Donner Cut just as much, maybe more.
I would probably say so. I mean, I've never seen the Donner Cut, but I can easily find it. It's no big deal.
It's good. I think you'd like it.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out for sure. We're all going to give this movie a 10. It's a fucking great film.
It's numbers don't even matter.
Yeah,
it gets a pie.
It gets a 10. It's a 10 squared.
With a repetand.
Yeah.
Is there anything you guys want to add about this movie before we go?
I had a few moments in this film where the genuineness of the characters, particularly Superman and Lois Lane and their scenes, brought to bear on me how much I miss so very terribly the actors who portrayed them.
Margot Kidder is just marvelous in this movie. What a balanced modulate, and that's the thing. There are so many characters in this film who are multifaceted. Lois has this big city edge, but she has a heart that's just, waiting to get out.
Yep.
And, Lex Luthor has, this very identifiable, almost everyman quality in terms of the people that he's saddled with. And then he has just chilling Ebert.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you're right. He goes from hot to cold.
And while we're talking about great performances in the movie, is Ned Beatty, who is the ideal foil for Gene Hackman. And to think about three very different, very good, strong, powerful performances in the 1970s from Ned Beatty. You got Deliverance, you've got this, and you've got Network.
Yeah.
And I mean, what range that guy has.
This performance required absolute commitment and consistency. Otherwise, again, it breaks the illusion of this guy being a genuine, bumbling kind of moron, but a sweet guy in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Just can't do it right,
I mean, for Lex's sake, for Eve Teschmacher's sake, and for Otis's sake, you sort of wish they were all working for someone else.
Right.
Everyone would be happier.
Right. Put them in an Abbott and Costello movie and just let them go nuts, something like that.
Sure. And I feel, back to Valerie Perrine, when she has sort of that romantic moment with Superman in the pool, I really feel for her. I see this vast world of life mistakes that she's mired with.
See, she's kissed a lot of frogs, and it's right there. I mean, what she's doing.
Yeah. It's just, gosh darn it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Lex Luthor, Gene Hackman does a good job being a jerk. Really good job.
Yes, he does.
Great actor, for sure. What's you guys' favorite Gene Hackman movie?
Probably Hoosiers.
The Hoosiers is good.
Hoosiers
I
is
like Hoosiers.
Hoosiers.
I'm going to say this is weird, but it's one of his later movies, and it's called Enemy of the State.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, that's a good movie. Like Royal Tenenbaums.
And one of the reasons Royal Tenenbaums is fantastic too.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that. That's a brilliant performance. But in Enemy of the State, I think I'm partial to that character because he reminds me a lot of one of my mentors, who was a very big time tech guy, and he was also an investigative reporter, so he had that sort of cynical edge about the way things worked. And he looked a lot like Gene Hackman, actually, this guy that I knew from many years. So that's my favorite role for a lot of reasons. But there are a lot of great ones. The Conversation.
Yeah. Oh, The Conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I forgot about that.
For me, it's since you had dibs in the Conversation, I'll put in The French Connection.
Absolutely.
It's another. I mean, wow, what a film! And yet he was almost Mike Brady.
Yes, that's right.
He was up for the part of Mike Brady.
Yeah.
You know, and here's the thing: could I see him playing it? Yes. Could I see Robert Reed playing this or any of those other parts? No. And I like Robert Reed. He seems like a nice guy, decent actor.
But his range
a lot of integrity.
That's right. His range is what it is. It's not.
He's very good at playing the Robert Reed character.
Yes, exactly.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So, guys, we're sorry. Is there anything you guys wanted to add? I know Alan had some stuff. Does anybody else want to add anything before we go?
You know what? I love the opening with the comic book.
That is pretty cool.
That just grounds it so beautifully. I feel like that is a moment that's connecting multiple generations with this, and really is emphasizing the Catholicism of Superman for as a piece of the American identity.
Yeah, my dad was
I
10
love
years
that.
old when Superman first came out in Action Comics, and he remembers that. That was it's interesting to know somebody that remembers when Superman was new, and he was a little different in those first comics. But he jumped, he didn't fly.
Yeah, he was a golem.
Yeah,
He was a golem designed to protect the neighborhood.
that's right.
You know, passing as a goy.
Yeah,
Clark Kent, the most goyish name possible.
yeah. I remember in one of
with
the
his dark
books,
spit curl and
Kal-El. One of the comics in the 1960s, somebody was trying to figure out who Superman was, and they thought they'd figured it out, and Superman fooled them out of thinking it was Clark Kent. And the kid is walking home because his father's asked him to go to the store and get a couple of candy bars. He opens his hand, and it's a Clark bar and a pack of Kent cigarettes.
There is something just wonderfully naive and sweet about that being the big gag, and because it's sincere.
Yes, absolutely is. But it's very earnest and very much that way. Yeah. Yeah. Those are the comics that I read in the late 60s. They were putting that kind of stuff out. And then they got edgier as time went on. But
yeah. Well, DC was always, in Marvel's rearview mirror, at that point, I think. They still produce some very good stories, but, I think they certainly lost the monopoly on the national identity at a certain point, and then tried way too hard to get it back.
Yeah.
And it just was sort of sad.
And that's kind of reflected in the movies that they do, too, unfortunately.
For me, the second best Superman movie is... oh God, it's not Grant. It's Grant Morrison, right?
Yeah, All-Star Superman.
All-Star Superman. Gosh, I love that movie. I think that's very good. If you get a chance, Jewel, if you haven't seen it, see it.
I will. I
It's
have
great.
not seen it.
It's very pure.
I'll give it a check out for sure. Guys, this was a lot of fun.
It was, Jewel. Thank you.
So, Patrick, I'll see you tomorrow for Halloween. Another 1978 movie.
Yeah,
Let's-
it's a great year for movies.
Yes, the 70s. If it weren't for the 70s, would we have got the films in the 80s?
No.
No, there'd been a huge logical gap in the progression of how cinema was done.
Right.
I don't think you could have done a lot of the stuff,
And
and it continues.
I think you hit the apex of 70s filmmaking in 1982, and then everything just kind of spiraled into irrelevant directions. I think.
For a while, it did. Yes.
If you need a good visual guide as to how the 70s turned into the 80s, the documentary Electric Boogaloo is on Tubi. Go watch it.
It's really good. Yeah, it's all about Canon Pictures.
And
It-
they were big, they were huge, and then they weren't. Then they were gone. It's kind of like that with the quality of 80s films.
Yeah, Canon Pictures had a lot of issues.
Yeah, that's why they're gone.
Well,
And they made the last Superman movie. They made Superman 4.
Yeah.
Well, when they were
gone.
a quick story. I know. I think I told this to Patrick before, but when they were making the movie Cyborg with Jean-Claude Van Damme, the director was not doing a good job, and they called Jean-Claude Van Damme and they said, Jean-Claude, you want to be a star. We want to make you a star. Let's change directors and let's do this movie right. So there was problems.
Mhm.
well, I will say this to you, Jewel. In Electric Boogaloo, the director of Cyborg addresses that directly, and I'll just leave it there.
Mhm.
Oh, interesting. I'd forgotten that.
Oh my god! It's a great movie, by the way. It's a must watch.
Yeah, and Jewel, I hate to tell you this, but Mikey
There you
from
go.
the Life cereal commercials did not die by eating Pop Rocks and drinking Pepsi.
Yeah.
Now I
know.
heard everything.
I know he.
Cyborg.
Well, everybody knew that. Oh, God. That's like common knowledge, dude. So,
Sniff wisely.
link to Patrick McCray's Dark Shadows Daybook about is going to be in the description box. Link to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page is going to be in the description box. Link to Alan Glant's YouTube channel, Collins Sport After Dark, is going to be in the description box. Have a good night, guys.
Good night, all.